We've got the warfighters back. That's the message from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and President Trump. But here's the thing. As they pitch a new $1 trillion defense budget that's a 13% increase over last year, we still have service members living in barracks full of mold and water damage. That's unacceptable, and it's been like that for a long time. So let's do it all. Let's get the new missiles. Let's get the new air defense system. Let's increase pay across the force, and let's improve the quality of life, the standard of living for our sons and daughters in uniform. So today we're going to dive into a couple different DoD updates. There's been a lot of news out of the Pentagon in recent weeks, and I wanted to hit on not just some changes with the border mission and the $1 trillion defense budget, but the reallocation of funds that could have been used to improve the soldiers' quality of life, and then some pretty significant staff reductions at the highest level of the force. We're talking about generals being moved out, potentially making room for more soldiers to enter the military. Now, starting out, we have some statements here from the Secretary of Defense and President Trump during a recent tour through the Middle East. Let's go ahead and listen to SECDEF talking about how he and the president, they've got the warfighters back. Here we go.
You know, I have the distinct privilege every day of watching President Donald Trump put America first. From the Oval Office to foreign trips, every single moment he has the best interests of our warfighters in mind. He wants to ensure in every situation, in every scenario, and every conflict, we have your back. And that's his message to me. He says, Pete, we better have their back as warfighters every time.
Now, you can like Secretary Hegseth, not like him, like Secretary Austin, not like him, whatever it is. The soldiers, the service members, they've heard all this stuff before, right? It's actions over words that actually matter. And right now, what we're seeing are a lot of words. Now, that tends to come at the beginning of any administration. There's a lot more talk than action. Action takes a little bit longer. But as we're seeing these last couple weeks, it's been a lot of media spots, a lot of talking about what's going to change. And there has been a lot of kind of administrative changes in the background, but the big things haven't really moved forward at all. What we have seen is there is just a report that the Pentagon is shifting assets down to the southern border mission, something we're going to cover more later in today's video. But according to this article, they say the DoD has quietly proposed redirecting more than $1.4 billion for military operations along the southern border. The proposal would move money away from base repairs, troop relocation costs, and service member pay and benefits. And this is a challenge that we have in our military. It's nothing new, right? We've always got to balance that, the soldier welfare versus the lethality and the modernization of the force. What's the right balance to draw? And there's probably no perfect answer there, to be fair, but for a long time, I think it's safe to say that a lot of resources that could have or should have been spent on the welfare of our service members has been reallocated elsewhere. It has not been a priority, not for quite a while. In fact, I want to draw your attention to an application, a group here called Cots that they do a lot of work over on X is where I see them, and it's awesome what they do. And they actually have a solution here. So they're not just venting and complaining, but they're documenting from the service member's perspective issues across the force when it comes to the standard of living. And they put out a great statement here that I want to share. And if you're on X, or even if you're not, consider checking out what these guys are doing and spreading the word, because I think this is the way that actual change gets through. They say the Pentagon is diverting over $1.28 billion from barracks repair and facility sustainment accounts to fund the southern border mission. Total estimated barracks-related impact is $1.1 billion to the Army, $142 million to the Air Force, $20 million for the Navy, and $20 million for the Marines. He says that's the vision the Secretary of Defense laid out, and it's powerful, but I respectfully offer this. Troops don't sleep in missiles. They sleep in barracks, and many of those barracks are failing. The 2023 GAO report confirmed what service members tell me every day through HOTS and COTS. Mold and water damage, no locks or privacy, broken HVAC, fire hazards, defects, dining facilities with limited hours or closed entirely. We all want the same thing, a strong, lethal, and ready force, but lethality starts with trust, and that trust is built in the day-to-day places troops live, eat, and rest between missions. I don't want to criticize from the sidelines. I want to partner. HOTS and COTS is already capturing honest, unfiltered feedback directly from service members across the country. We've built a platform that can help leadership see the conditions in real time and make better informed decisions. If we can work together to close this gap. Let's match our world-class weapons with world-class living standards. I'm ready when you are. And I love that message, right? More than just venting, it's an actual solution. And they've been putting in time and energy for free to document all of these issues so the government has that information available, can make the appropriate decisions. Again, there's always a balancing act here of how much do you allocate to the readiness of the force in terms of the welfare of the soldiers and their families and wanting the best and the brightest to join versus how much do you put into missiles, submarines, jets, and so on. But this is clearly a gap that needs to be filled, and really appreciate what Hots and Cots is doing. Now, that said, a little personal news here. I don't usually talk about this, but I left the military recently. So I've been in the reserve for a couple years, which means it's just once a month, a couple weeks a year. And I have gone out of my way to not record or show anything in uniform. Just from a professional standpoint, I didn't want to blur those lines at all and ever make it seem like I was speaking or promoting or doing anything on behalf of the Army. I thought that was inappropriate. So pretty easy to just not record while in uniform when you're only doing it once a week or once a month. But this does wrap up, let's see, about 12 years of service. So commissioned in 2009, field artillery officer, 5 years active, little 3-year break in service there in the IRR. Went back into the National Guard because I missed the soldiers. Then some time in the Texas National Guard, Texas Army National Guard, and now the Army Reserve. For a couple years now, if I'm being honest, I haven't had a lot of fun. I haven't looked forward to drill weekends, and I'm in a fortunate position. I'm a major. I'm on the officer side. I don't have an obligation remaining with the military. I completed that after my first 5 years of active duty. So when I stopped having fun, kind of talked about it with the family and decided it was probably time to move on. But a couple of questions that I get a lot around my time in service. Does this, what I do on the personal side, have any impact there or vice versa? And the answer is no. I mean, my name's on the channel. It's on every account that I have. Every boss that I've had in the Army Reserve since I've started making content has known about the work I do. If it's ever been mentioned at all, it's been in a positive light and sharing my channel with others in the military, like bosses sharing my channel. I've never had any pushback on anything I've said or done, and never any direction provided on what I should or shouldn't say. So I've tried to draw that line pretty clear between the two, and for what it's worth, I feel like the Army did as well. There really wasn't any overlap. But all that said, the Army's been a really big part of my life. You know, started West Point back in 2005, so it's like 20 years of being involved in some way, shape, or form with the military. For better or for worse, it's made me who I am today. It's been a big impact on who I am. So I would recommend it to anybody who's thinking about the military. 100% check it out. Give it a go. Some of the best people I know, some of my best friends today, either were in or continue to serve. So if you're thinking about it, give it a shot. Now, continuing on with some DoD news, I want to shift down to the southern border because we've recently declared what's referred to as a national defense area along the border. And there's some contentious subjects here, but I wanted to start out with an explanation directly from the Secretary of Defense, because why not? Let's get it directly from the top of the DoD, explaining what this NDA is. Here we go.
Just a quick update. 2 weeks ago, we were down on the border when we established the first national defense area. Basically, think about the border. It's similar to a military installation. If you trespass, you will be charged. Well, since then, we've got 2,000 troops patrolling that area. We put over 1,300 signs up in that national defense area, including a second national defense area. So the border space that DoD is allowed to take actions inside is growing and growing.
All right, so by and large, kind of the justification here is when the president declared an emergency at the southern border, saying that we're facing an invasion, it kind of opened up the possibility to use the military in more domestic operations than we're normally used to. So this is being viewed by some as a way to kind of bypass posse comitatus, the Posse Comitatus Act, which does not allow for the use of federal forces on U.S. territory. But they say that by designating these areas as military property, the administration is essentially using an interpretation that allows military personnel to take action against individuals who trespass on a military installation. So essentially they're saying this isn't the military acting on U.S. soil, doing law enforcement on U.S. soil. It's people stepping onto a military installation where the military, of course, has jurisdiction. Then at that point, they would be transferred over, my understanding, is to a law enforcement organization like Customs and Border Protection. Now, the reason that this has been laid out as such is because, again, of this calling it a national emergency at the southern border, which does allow for standing up what it looks like, my understanding, is about 60-foot depth all across the southern border from about Texas west, where the military now has operational control. They can, in that area, that is the national defense area. But there has been a little criticism of this. But first, to kind of set the stage for where the criticism is coming from, I'm going to go back to the Secretary to talk about kind of what they're doing and what this might lead to in terms of the NDA.
So far, DOJ has already charged more than 100 illegal aliens with these crimes. That number will continue to climb. The number of national defense areas will continue to climb. The barbed wire will climb. The troops will climb, because we're going to get 100% operational control of the border. And when you cross illegally, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law by the Department of Justice.
So that itself is being viewed as both like a positive as what's to come, but also the pushback from a lot of folks. I actually have a different take on this that I my personal pushback, get to here in a second. But the argument being made by quite a few folks here is that it blurs the line between military and domestic law enforcement, possibly erodes domestic freedoms, and it may just try to circumvent, again, this Posse Comitatus Act that tries to prevent this exact type of thing of the military kind of taking over a law enforcement role in our country. Slippery slope is an argument that could be made there. Personally, my pushback is I think those are all valid points and things we should be discussing. My pushback is we have law enforcement organizations across the country. The military is not specifically trained in those skill sets. Our military is designed to fight and win wars, and I would rather see our military focused on that and training to that end and preparing for a future conflict than setting up barbed wire and patrolling the southern border. Let's hire more CBP personnel, whatever it might be, right? For a short-term fix, I got it. Long-term solution, as the Secretary is kind of laying out here, there's more to come. Long-term, I would rather see the military focused on actual military operations, protecting the homeland, whereas the Border Patrol being done by Border Patrol and law enforcement. Personal opinion there. Now, as a part of all this, we are hearing more and more from the Secretary that we've got, and the President, that we've got $1 trillion defense budget on the way. Let's go ahead and give that a listen as to what that might entail.
We're restoring the warrior ethos. We're also rebuilding our military. President Trump has committed a $1 trillion defense budget, a historic budget unlike any before, a generational rebuilding of our capabilities. We will have the best ships, the best subs, the best planes, the best fighters, the best drones, missiles, air defense, space defense, border security, Golden Dome, you name it. America will be stronger than ever before under our Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. He is committed to that.
All right, so a couple key points when looking at this possible defense budget. I do want to note that the details are not out yet. So right now it's a lot of reporting kind of between the lines, what might be there, what might not be there. President Trump, for his part, has said that it does include an across-the-board pay raise for all service members, which would be awesome. The $1 trillion, I think it's $1.01 trillion technically, would be a roughly 13% rise in the Pentagon budget last year, or from last year. And then looking at arguments here for and against this size, this increase in the defense budget, arguments for, of course, pretty simple here. We need a stronger, maybe even larger military. We need to modernize the force. There's a lot of things it's getting old. We need to rebuild things with new technology. All of that does cost a lot of money. Of course, inflation plays a role too. You can't entirely rule that out. The major arguments against at this point tend to be that we're in debt. So why are we spending more money? There's also been a lot of folks talking about cutting spending at the federal government level, and all of a sudden we're talking about a 13% increase at DOD. This was one of the arguments with the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, when they were talking about saving all sorts of money, but then we hear that there's going to be a 13% increase in one of the largest expenditures of U.S. government. How do you square that? That's one thing that's been some pushback. And then the DOD still hasn't passed an audit in a long time. And Secretary Hegseth has talked about actually getting that done. But nonetheless, there is, I think, a very viable argument to say, why do we continue to increase the spending if we can't even publicly account for where everything goes? You know, there's going to be secret and classified programs in there for sure, but that's no different than any other organization. The Marines have that, and the Marines passed their audit. So much smaller budget, but nonetheless, I think we should be probably pushing for that, and hopefully it gets done. Now, continuing on, last item here, it does look like a bit of a restructuring of the force. Secretary Hegseth laid out plans to remove a bunch of general positions is probably a better way to put it. In his words from a press statement or from a video he put out on his account last week. Let's go ahead and give that a listen.
We're back with more DOD reforms. This one
is General and Flag Officer Reductions. That's the official title. My title is Less Generals, More GIs. It's a historic one, and it's in keeping with President Trump's commitment to achieving peace through strength. We're going to shift resources from bloated headquarters elements to our warfighters. Let's take a bit of a trip down memory lane. In history, when we were fighting across the globe during World War II, we had a force that was 12 million strong. For that 12 million man element, we had 17 4- and 5-star generals. Today, we have 2.1 million service members with 44 4-star and flag officers. So it used to be a ratio of 1 general to 6,000 troops. Today, it's 1 general to 1,400. More generals and admirals does not equal more success. Now, this is not a slash and burn exercise meant to punish high-ranking officers. Nothing could be further from the truth. This has been a deliberative process, working with the Joint Chiefs of Staff with one goal: maximizing strategic readiness and operational effectiveness by making prudent reductions in the general and flag officer ranks.
So a couple thoughts there. First off, it's been interesting to see the same argument applied in both directions. So I've seen people say the military is so much more advanced now, we need more generals, and the military is so much more advanced now that we don't need more, we need fewer generals because more can be done with technology. So pick your poison on that one. It'll be interesting to see how these cuts are actually rolled out. It does sound like at this point there's going to be some offices rolled into other offices. Some departments might be shut down entirely. Look, no doubt it's the government, right? Just like any major organization, any big company, and no doubt in the military, there's bloat and there's positions, bureaucratic positions that have grown over time and aren't doing anything to materially help the force day in and day out. No doubt. The interesting thing here will be kind of the focus at the very top. Removing a set number of generals does not automatically improve the quality of the force, but it also doesn't automatically shut us down in any way, shape, or form. So there's going to be a lot of important conversations about how exactly these people are determined for removal and the positions are determined to be rolled up. But nonetheless, this will be a pretty significant change to the force. Again, wait to see whether it's a big shift in the positive direction or actually causes some issues. But nonetheless, that's the overall look at DoD news over the last couple weeks here. Again, please check out Hots and Cots, link to the description below. I think they're doing really, really important work, very selfless work, most importantly. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.